Right, hello everybody, again, and welcome back to the Witness Show. I had a quick few ideas for this video whilst we're by this waterfall here, nice scenic view. Basically, God, the bloke who made this game, do you know this guy's, I'm going solo development now. This guy's, the guy who made The Witness, he's one of the original solo developers. He was on Indie Game the movie making whilst making this game, which inspired me just over 10 years ago to become a solo developer. And it's quite funny because now I'm the host of the Witness Show, talking rabble whilst walking around the Witness on my PS4 Pro, whilst basically going solo development as well. So I'm just feeling a bit so that slight rush ahead there. Yeah, so basically I had a quick idea for this video. Basically, I wanted to go in a bit about autism as such. I came up with a little bit about autism for the last video. I just wanted to talk a bit more about mental health in particular, because that has meant, you know, although although this diagnosis for high functional autistic spectrum disorder has become has been a long wait, and it's been part of my life probably all my life now, as I have seen some of my childhood photos. Basically, I just want to talk about a bit more about mental health in particular, mental health problems in particular, which is slightly separate from autistic spectrum disorder, mental health in particular. Because that's the thing that's really sort of been on my mind, and it's not been on my mind as such, but funny enough, I was originally diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia a long time ago now, about nearly 10 years ago now, and then I got a re-diagnosis for schizoaffective disorder about must have been about coming up to, yeah, so I was first diagnosed nearly 10 years ago, then that was only 5 years ago, so it's been, yeah, so that was only 5 years ago now. So yeah, it's been about 5 years apiece now of paranoid schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder, and now I'm just about to be diagnosed with autistic spectrum disorder. But high functional autistic spectrum disorder, what I actually have is a dual diagnosis of I know I sound perfectly plausibly within my own frame of mind, but that's because I've come to a certain point of my recovery now. You know, I've worked, I've developed, I've worked on my flat, I've done this, I've done that, and you know, it's been an awful lot of hard work, is what I'm saying. You know, mental health problems don't go away. It's actually a lot of hard work. You have to get the environment around you right. You have to. It's not just about smoking. It's not just about smoking organic plants all day, stuff like that. It's about your environment. It's about going for a walk every now and again. It's about this, it's about that. So it's about what you're eating. It's about staying fit and healthy, all that stuff. I still smoke a bit. I still smoke a bit too heavily. I smoke too many roll-ups, but I've stopped drinking. I've not really done drugs in a while. Basically, yeah. So I've not done it. I've barely touched drugs in heavy drugs in years, to be honest. But I can't remember the last time I had a joint was. Must have been coming up to 2.5 years ago now. I ended up getting a little bit of weed off someone. It must have been about 2.5 years ago now. I last had a joint. I've tried. I've had some of that CBD. I've had some pretty decent CBD things like that. But Nordic oil is very good, by the way. If you want to get some CBD, Nordic oil is very good. It's actually proper stuff, if you know what I mean. So yeah, basically, yeah. So basically, what I would say is that I suppose, how do I put it? I just want to talk about a bit of my experience with mental health to begin with, without rambling on too much now, and go into a bit about the kind of what actually happened, sort of throughout my formative career throughout that particular time. What actually happened. I actually wrote a book. I actually wrote a memoir I've got a few books and that. I wrote a load of books and posted on Apple Books. I think people actually have read them now, funny enough. And there was a particular book called Switzerland Hellos, which is my third book, which is it was like a story in poetic form of the 2010s, because I had an idea that something was going to happen in 2020, because people had predicted there was going to be that there was going to be a pandemic already. If you're wondering how I actually predicted in my second book, 0101 Information British Politics, in March, I believe it was February, March 2019, there was about to be a pandemic. That basically it was a program called Utopia that it has a very good cult following. It's a British-made film that in 2020 they made an American version of it. It's got very bad write-ups, but I'm sure it's very, very good. It's a bit different apparently. It's not. They didn't just copy it to the same. I don't think they actually just copied it to the same principle. I'm sure it's very good. Basically, yeah. So about Switzerland Hellos, I wrote a memoir of the 2010s. It's kind of. I'd like to think it's one of the funniest books about chefing ever written since Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential. That's very, very underground, if you know what I mean. Basically, I suppose that is that a man coming to shoot me or something? No. Yeah. So I suppose that basically. Yeah, let's just walk around now. So I suppose that. Oh dear. So I suppose that basically, yeah. So I first started noticing something. I may have an issue. I have seen videos of me when I was very, very young, looking slightly confused. I believe that was due more of the Asperger's, but not Asperger's, autistic spectrum disorder, but or looking slightly bewildered around my surroundings, if you know what I mean. When I was younger, I have always been quite a funny bloke. I've always liked to crack jokes. I was known as the funny one at school. I really was. I was actually quite popular at school, funnily enough. I was quite popular among a lot of my friends and stuff like that. I was because I was quite funny. I slam very funny. If you see the joke in that, but basically, I suppose that when I was 14 in year 9, or what a lot of Americans call ninth grade, or I believe that would be 9th or 10th grade. So they don't have reception there, do they? So they don't have year 0 there, basically. I don't think so. It must be about 10th grade, but I think they actually do have 12th grade there, don't they? So that would be about 10th grade. I think they have 12th grade there. So I was about 14. Oh no, they go to school to like 18, don't they? I don't get it. They must go to school a bit later. That's probably not a bad idea. They don't do it in Germany. They go to school when they're 7. Basically, and they get much better results. So yeah. I suppose when I was 14, I started realising that there was a little bit of an issue with my mood, and I had to go home from school for a few days, and I actually got put in front of the headmaster because he had absolutely no idea what was wrong with me. He expected the silly man expected me to actually have some kind of, he expected me to talk about it in front of him and have some kind of answer for him about what was wrong with me. Obviously, clearly, mental health. I'm not dissing the bloke. Clearly, I mean, mental health was not. It wasn't quite as. it's not exactly in the press, is it? But it's become an epidemic, and since then, basically schools, colleges, all that kind of stuff have very, very much they've become accustomed to the fact that pupils do suffer from mental health problems, very, very much so. Students have real issues with mental health all the time. But as I've just noticed in my, as I've just noticed coming out of coming out of the Open University, but you know, that is in no way saying anything about the Open University whatsoever. I believe what they're actually doing is giving you a certain framework in which to think. Basically, what I would say is that I started realising there was a certain problem with my mood when I was about 14, and by the time I was going through. I did a young apprenticeship at Swindon College, where I'm from. I was actually one of the lucky few that got put on a young apprenticeship, one of Gordon Brown's young apprenticeship schemes. When I was 14, I did a professional cookery MVQ level 2, and then basically what's happened was I did my level 3, and then I'd actually finished my level 3 course in cookery by the time I was actually 17, and I'd already worked in one of the top 100 restaurants in the UK by the time I was about 17 for a good couple of years at least, next to a couple of years actually. And then basically what actually happened was I had this big ambition that I was going to go to London. I was going to break into London, break into Michelin star kitchens in London, and I did. I got a job in a Michelin star kitchen in South London. It wasn't actually in central London, it was right on the outskirts I did not like it there very much. It wasn't that I didn't know what I was letting myself in for. It was more the fact when I actually tell you this, you're not going to actually believe what I have to say about it, because it was actually it wasn't anything to do with the fact that it was a kitchen, or the fact that it was or the fact that or the fact it's a very well known restaurant in south of Bromley. Had a Michelin star at the time and 4 rosettes. Basically, a lot of people know where that restaurant is. Basically, who are in the trade at least anyway. Basically, I suppose it wasn't actually anything to do with the restaurant or the fact that it was actually a harsh environment, or it wasn't the pay, it wasn't where I was sleeping in the halfway cut fucking staff house. It wasn't anything. I was 18 years old. I was very ambitious, and I was very keen to get on with my job. Funny enough, what I actually noticed was at the time, funny enough, because it was March 2010. I actually got the job in March 2010, and at the time there was a massive, great big election there. There was a massive, great big election. I voted for the Labour Party, and that part of Kent, or next to Farnborough Common, if you know where I mean, Nigel Farage, as far as I'm aware at least, basically is not a very well-known Labour voting area, and basically, yeah, it turned into a little bit of a funny place. It wasn't necessarily the restaurant so much as the place and the setting. I thought it wasn't the restaurant at all. I could not go on living in that fucking pox little shithole called Locksbottom anymore. I'm sorry. Not with the kind of racial slurs that were going on around the place at the time of that particular election, when they were all secretly trying to get out of the European Union. No, I didn't say that. Basically, and I started suffering from acute stress. Effectively, I ended up leaving my job. Things like that. I started suffering from acute stress. And basically, I ended up. I had a patch at the back of my hair where I just scratched half my head off. Basically, I ended up leaving there and going. I decided to ignore it for the time being. I went to Stratford upon Avon, where I had a great time fantastic time. Met lots of nice people there in Warwickshire. Had a good time, like lots of young people should do. I had the time that a chef should have when they're at that age in Stratford-upon-Avon. I remember it very well, and that's about it. I don't remember. I do remember it pretty well. I was about 18, 19 years old at the time, and then basically I left that job, and then. But funny enough, again, I was working. But then, funny enough, I was actually pushing myself way too hard at work, and then basically, what actually accumulated from something that actually happened about maybe 2 years before that. Maybe 2 years before that in Kent, actually accumulated into something that. I mean, how do I put it? You know, if you want to talk psychology here, in what actually, if it accumulated, what accumulated into something else of, it accumulated into something else of this unseen stress that I had, because I thought I was doing perfectly fine, but there was very unseen, there was very sort of unseen stress. I ended up losing my next job without knowing why, and then I ended up playing Dark Souls, funny enough, and I was playing Skyrim for a bit, and then I ended up getting into Dark Souls. I never looked back. I did end up getting, I ended up having first episode psychosis, and then basically I yeah, so I ended up having first episode psychosis, and then basically I ended up getting one more job at a two-star Michelin restaurant, not far from where I am actually, from where I actually am now, to be honest. It's a two-star Michelin restaurant, not too far from where I actually am now, in Malmesbury, where my cousin lives, and my second cousin, and Tim, who's also a gamer who I like to play games with sometimes, and basically, yeah. So I suppose what actually, yeah, this is no way form of psychology. What I'm trying to do is trying to express something that if you have, if you think you may have a mental health problem, no matter how young you are, I would seek help and advice as early as possible, rather than leave it in the background and try and, you know, it's going to chase after you. Basically, it's like a shadow that really does chase after you. If you don't if you think to yourself, oh, I'm just going to get away with it, that you're not going to. I thought I thought for a couple of years that I had a bit of a wobble. Something happened. I don't know what it was, but I thought I'd get away with it, and I didn't. Because it was. I was wondering about drugs. That really is actually that is actually part of. You know, drugs aren't just a reason for my diagnosis. Dabbling in it's what affects what I call dabbling in drug use. Dabbling in drug use through an episode of a long period of psychosis and psychotic mood disorder is effectively not just a reason for my diagnosis, it's actually a part of my diagnosis. So yeah, yeah, that's about it. So basically, then what actually, I ended up getting a job at a two-star, and then funny enough, I lost that job, funny enough. But you know, then I ended up working part-time in Swindon in kitchens. I plan to go back and work part-time in Swindon in kitchens, probably just after this summer. So I'm not far out of a recovery from hospital. Literally, that's been happening for about a day now. So I woke up today and felt better. So after defeating the Russians, so basically. And what I have to say is that basically, I suppose, yeah, it's very good graphics on this game, isn't it? It's very good graphics, isn't it? Yeah. So, I suppose that basically, Yeah. Oh, I do have to get into one more thing about that. In 2010, does anyone remember what actually happened in late 2019 to early 2010? And it involved something called legal highs. It was the birth of legal highs in 2010. Can I just explain to you that legal highs were actually created by the Conservative government in a form in a form of mass delusion of the young of a young crowd, and you know they are still developed by the Conservative government to this day. You know, it became illegal. It became a Class B just after the general election. Because yes, it was. They were created by the Conservative government. Yes, they were. 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 Anyway. Um, anyway, yeah. So effectively, what else? So yeah. Another thing. I suppose that let's just walk down here and then stop. Where's the boat? Where's the boat? Where's the boat? Yeah. So yeah, I suppose that basically, without rambling on too much more, you know, I'm trying to public speak here, but without rambling on too much more. Basically, I think that yeah, I ended up I ended up working part time. I ended up in halfway homes for a couple of years, and I've been living here for nearly 7 years now. I'm only 31. I'm only a nipper. So basically, I suppose that yeah. So in effect, I suppose that basically when yeah, what if you want to come to, oh, by the way, just 20 passing tourists here, if anyone does manage to get into England at the moment. Basically, if you want to see what the UK is really like, not like in architecture or anything like that, but if you want to see what it's like in architecture, then go to London or Oxford or something like that. If you want to see what the UK is like politically, there at a particular time, then come and walk around a place like Swindon. You'll know exactly what it's like. We've just voted for a Labour Party council for the first time in 20 years, and the shops are open again. We have new shops. There's markets out the front of there's shops with markets out the front selling fish and fruit. Indians selling fish, fruit. There's a Taco Bell in the old game store. There's Polish shops. Just because we have a Labour council, that's all it is. Anyway, thank you very much. Goodbye.